Thank you, Zoe. Right, good morning, everybody. First of all, welcome to the council agenda for the 31st of October. I think it's Halloween today, isn't it? First of all, we'll start with a karakia, please. Thank you, Dale-Marie.
Ata Māria koutou. Manawa mai te Māori nuku, manawa mai te Māori rangi, ko te Māori kai au, he Māori tipua, ka pakuru mai te pō, tau mai te Māori haumea hui e tai ki e. He mihi nui ki tō tātou kingi, tu heitia, po ta tau te whirowhiro te tua whitu, me te kahui ariki, rire hau pai mārire. E mihi atu ki ngā mate o te wā, ko wehe ki te pō, ki te hunga ora, tēnā tātou. That karakia was the same as the last one. Embrace the life force of the sky, make sure it's powerful, and let's get on with it.
Thank you, Dale-Marie. Great start to the day, the life force stuff, you know, especially nearing the end of the year. Look, I've just got a few opening comments to make, obviously, in Susan's absence, and of course, the opening of the Lukenwā Museum in Lukenwā, of course, where myself, Ms. Susan, and Chair Joe Davies-Colley came as well. So, of course, this is a long-standing sister city relationship that we have with Lukenwā, and of course, the opening of that museum with, you know, after such a long period of time fundraising for it was particularly special. So that sister city relationship's been in place now since the year 2000. And of course, just having now a permanent museum for New Zealanders to visit, to commemorate many of our New Zealand men that didn't come home is just, yeah, it's a wonderful milestone, and I'm just so pleased to have been able to be part of it. So, yeah, that was very, very special. And just, yeah, I guess Susan is on her way home now. Everyone is asking, so she's not too far away, and we'll catch up with you later on this week. And just a couple of other notes, I guess. Of course, the national election has now taken place over the last month. So a change in government, which will no doubt, there will be changes for us around this table as well. Of course, many of those changes we will wait to hear. And of course, they won't necessarily be overnight changes, but we'll wait with anticipation as to what that will bring for us as governors of our district. So, yeah, interesting times again. I also just wanted to acknowledge the passing, actually, of a person. Of course, we don't know the name or anything at this point in time, but of course in Te Amutu last week, there was a tragic accident on our main street. It does, of course, you know, when we don't know whether this person was local or not, probably not, but at this point in time, yeah, any passing of a person in our district, of course, is very sad. So condolences to family and friends, yeah, and yeah, of course, it is, you know, quite a difficult time for everybody. So, and just lastly, we did also have our 1 year, I guess, anniversary of our council election just over the last couple of weeks. So, just wanted to acknowledge a few things. Of course, this is Susan's first year as mayor, and I wanted to acknowledge the great work that she has been doing. Monty, you're a first-term councillor, so absolutely, you know, great. Fantastic job, mate. we always, you know, we talk about this at times, you know, it feels like a bit of a thankless job, but yeah, you know, going great, Monty, keep going. And Dale-Marie, again, first term, only 4 months into the role. But yeah, just lovely to have had you on board, and congratulate you on the work already that you have done in this space, because it's you know, pretty fantastic what we've done in a short period of time. So look, that's it from me, and we'll move into our meeting. So first of all, we have apologies. We have 2 this morning. Apologies from obviously Mayor Susan O'Regan, but also apologies from Lou Brown. So Mike is going to move. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Andrew. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Now, do we have any disclosure of members' interest this morning? Nothing? Excellent. Then we'll move to our any late items. Don't believe there are any. No, good. Confirmation of order of the meeting. So thank you, Claire. You'll move in that we confirm the order of our meeting this morning in a seconder. Thank you, Mike. All in favour? Carried. Right, we'll move to our confirmation of the open minutes. Now, we do have a bit of an amendment here, but before I put the amendment of that resolution, are there any other changes, things that we need to do to amend those? Everybody's happy with them? All right, so I'll just read out the amendment that the open minutes of the Waipa District Council meeting held on 26th of September 2023, having been circulated, be taken as read and confirmed as a true and correct record of that meeting, subject to correction of minor typographical errors, because there were a couple of small things, and in particular, I think the title of Gary Knighton was incorrect, so that will be changed. So thank you, Claire, for picking that up. And if there's nothing else, we'll ask for a mover and a seconder for those minutes. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Roger. All in favour? Carried. Thanks, everybody. All right, we'll move on to the documents signed under council seal. Hand over to Gary.
I was trying to think of what.
First agenda item.
You, Deputy Mayor.
That's good.
So these are really mostly warrants in response to changes in legislation and new people being appointed to roles. Those are the ones in the table. The deed of lease relates to the 2 degrees licence on the Greenhill Drive water tower, and the others are really quite straightforward. The bylaws and the discharge of the compensation certificate for the stormwater pond that you approved a couple of meetings ago.
Thank you, Gary. Any questions around any of those? Otherwise, on page 20, we do have a recommendation to move A, B, C, D, and E. If there's no changes, thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Bruce. All in favour? Carried. All right, we'll move on to our next item, which is our Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Now, we have got some information to share on our screen for this particular item. Good morning, how are you? I'll hand straight over, yep.
All right, thank you. So this report is taking the highlights of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, which occurred last week. The key thing here is around approval of Council's top risks and risk appetite statement. So these have been workshopped with senior staff and the ARC committee, and also open to all councillors in regards to the workshops and development of our top risks and risk appetite settings. So that's the key purpose of the report. There have been some suggested amendments in regards to the top risk document and risk appetite statement that have come through from Councillor St Pierre, which is the purpose of the Word document that you see in front of you. As these have been approved, documents approved by ARC, we will need to make amendments in regards to the resolution for the report. And there's also 2 items that are of substantive nature in regards to questions that we would need to revert back to the ARC committee for discussion and approval. So before we go through to the top risk document and risk appetite statement, maybe just ask for questions around the remainder of the report in regards to the ARC key points.
Fantastic, thank you. Any other queries, questions? Roger.
Just to comment on the change in formatting that was really strongly approved by the ARC committee, and that's the bow tie diagram, which gave distinctly better background to the origin and the mitigation of risks, etc. So really endorse that bow tie, and I hope that the other councillors found it a lot better to understand the top risks by the inclusion of that diagram.
Thank you, Roger. Any other comments? No, nothing at this point, so I'll let you carry on.
All right, so what I want to do is just quickly work through these amendments, if that's okay. So on page 48, there is a request to make under top risk 2 the additional action to be more overt around that this is seeking external funding from external parties for those key community projects. So the wording change reflects that request. Everyone okay with that one? Yep. So page 49 under top risk 3 under the bow tie analysis has been a request to make it more overt, and this is regards to financial sustainability risk and the fact that we have an ageing population with a greater proportion on fixed incomes. So there's been a request to add that into the bow tie analysis as a potential cause. Yeah. Okay, the next one on page 50 again reflects the one on page 48, be more overt about the fact that this is external funding that we are seeking. All right, on page 55, I have actually asked Kirsty to respond to this, and I believe she's online, is that right? Yep, so this is about our top risk 6, which is around our failure in regards to our Te Tiriti partnerships. And just a question from Claire in regards to that risk statement. So I don't know, Claire, if you want to give your feedback, and then I've asked Kirsty to respond to that.
Thanks, George, and thanks for picking up all of those things that I sent through. I wasn't sure how to raise it, and I'd sent through the annotations for the annual plan. Or annual report, and I got picked up. So yeah, you guys are really, really diligent on that. But yeah, just on this, it mentions in the risk that council has a responsibility to like meeting its legislative and governance obligations to support developing the capability and capacity of mana whenua. Yeah. And so I don't see myself that is sort of set in Te Tiriti, you know. We obviously, you know, there's partnership, protection, participation, but does that participation mean that council has to fund the building of that capacity? You know, there are other ways to build capacity without council having to fund it. And also, related to that is that we are actually contributing to that capacity building already, but we don't have any reporting on it. We don't, it's kind of really indirect. It happens without it coming to the council table, and we don't have any feedback on the effectiveness of it, or if it's taken up or not taken up. You know, like, I just feel like I'd like to explore it more. I think that's the terminology I used. Yeah. And I think it's a really important space. So we need to tread carefully, and we need to demonstrate why we're doing it, that it is backed up by legislation or best practice. Okay, but at the moment, I don't feel that.
Kirsty, are you able to respond?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, Morena Koutou. So just in response to the issues raised by Councillor St Pierre, elected members may recall that when the new council was elected in October 2022, we had an off-site elected member executive induction session, and we worked through our strategic direction, and critical to that was the messaging, the work that was coming out of the Future for Local Government review. And obviously that draft report has now progressed and a final report has issued. But what was discussed was the move from engaging with mana whenua and iwi to partnering in a way that gave true recognition to Te Tiriti. And through those discussions with elected members, and particularly driven by Mayor Susan, was, I guess, the way in which we were currently engaging through our various forums. You know, prior to the election, iwi Consultative Committee, na iwi tōpua waipa, we'd had Te Kanohi, we now had a new Māori ward councillor, there was representation through various governance groups, but what we were consistently hearing from mana whenua particularly was there is a real pull on their resources through responding to initiatives at a national level, sub-regional, regional level, and then within our local communities. And that for many of these people, you know, the younger people have full-time work and business commitments, and older people are represented in various different forums. So there was conversation about how we could work with mana whenua particularly and iwi to increase capability and capacity. And one of the key avenues for exploring that further was looking at our partnership framework. And you're aware that that piece of work is underway. And part of that will be looking at our current models, but also connecting with mana whenua at marae and hapu level. Through our engagement with Ahuaki, we heard quite clearly that we need to look at how we engage at that more granular level. And ensure a two-way communication, and that we need to be more proactive rather than reactive. There were also, through the Future for Local Government review recommendations, there's also potential opportunities for learning and development and how we can collaborate in that space. So I think that's really what was intended when this risk was revisited as part of the annual review.
Okay, thank you, Kirsty. Does that answer your question, Claire?
Well, I'm getting a sort of broader picture of all of the different initiatives and the fact that it's a work in progress, which I do support the work that is underway. We don't know the final outcome of that work yet, and I am keen to see an effective, I suppose, framework or effective policies put in place. At the moment, I'm not sure whether or not this council group will actually have much input into that, or, you know, what review and feedback and, you know, processes are going to come out of that either, so that we can make sure that it is delivering what we hope it will.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Look, I'm going to hand over to Dale Moray because I know she's keen to say a few words, but I guess for me, I know that, you know, having a new Māori ward councillor around this table with full voting rights has been critical to this process. And I think for mana whenua and iwi, that has been, you know, a really important step to take. And of course, we're 4 months in the role, and I know that Dale Moray has a lot of things that she is very keen to do, and I'll let her describe those. I know there's a few coming up, but yeah, I guess my reply is I feel like it's early days, and I feel like there's a lot of momentum going as well. But Dale Moray, I'll let you speak.
Tēnā tātou, and tēnā koe Claire, mō o whakaro, o kōrero, mō tēnei kaupapa. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you, Kirsty, for responding and reminding us as a council of some of those engagement times that we've had and some of the things that we have committed to. Claire, I would like to say in response though, everything that you've said around, I'm thinking is probably ngā iwi tōpū that you might be alluding to, and some of the review and accountability that comes from that group. I'd love to use that whole lens on us with about our commitment to the treaty and how we understand the treaty and how we're positioned as a council. So I'd really love to use the same application when we look at how we haven't been great partners for a long time with iwi. I understand and I do appreciate your feedback, because that is one of the things that I will be addressing with a couple of areas that sit in the iwi space as the Māori constituent voice. But I will say, if we could apply the same lens on how we've been a partner with iwi right up until now, I think we have an obligation as council to help in certain ways around the capacity, because with 2022 only getting a Māori ward councillor, this is only going to help Māori re-engage into local government process that we gave up on a long time ago. And I could revisit that till the cows come home. But if we can all just remember applying that same lens to us with how we have done our partnership with iwi. So I'll just leave it there, but thank you, Kirsty, for that response. Tēnā koutou.
Kirsty, have you got your hand up? You wanted to?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, just in response to the comments about the work underway with the partnership agreement. So there are discussions underway with Mana Whenua about setting up hui, and I understand there is an intention to bring together all elected members for a hui as soon as possible, and there will be regular reporting. Obviously, there are organisational and CE KPIs around this piece of work, so there will be reporting. You mentioned also, Councillor St Pierre, about reporting back on engagement, and this was something that we have heard from elected members and have endeavoured to respond to. So you may recall that there was an overview report presented by Gary Knighton at the beginning of October. And the intention is that that will be provided at least on a quarterly basis through to elected members with updates on the various work streams and engagement underway. So just wish to provide that clarification also. Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Right, we'll round that that topic off now. So back to you, George. We'll carry on through the.
Yeah, if I could just have the Word document back, thank you. So I'm taking direction from that there is no change to the wording for top risk 6 required.
I just, as the Deputy Chair of the Audit and Risk, we do a deep dive into each of these risks. And you mentioned the timing. We've had comment on our acknowledgement or recognition of treaty obligations. But I think that deep dive will be the place also to consider the particular wording of this risk, because I think it's the wording that Claire had the issue with, and I think the deep dive would be the place to consider that.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, carry on, George.
All right, so we'll move on to the next amendment, please. So the next one is around adding an additional mitigation, existing mitigation to top risk 6. So NETAO, JMA agreements and committees of Māori representation. Any concerns around that? No. Moving on, top risk 8. This is about where we will not take risk in regards to our response to central government reforms. And there's been a request to add a bullet point, which I've taken from the feedback and put as we will endeavour to ensure any reform responses will be ones that benefit Waipa ratepayers. So that's in regards to where we will not take risk. Okay, page 60, that's an expansion of an additional action. I've added the points from the feedback, including determining what would be good for Waipa in terms of water services and possibly RMA reforms. Yep. And the last one is, again, something that is a substantive piece of feedback that would require further discussion back with ARC. So we currently have a risk portfolio within our risk appetite statement that encompasses governance, reputation, legislative compliance and control. And there's been and the current risk appetite setting of that is moderate. The councillor request is that we separate out compliance and control and set that appetite as low. The response from staff or myself is that it's been set as moderate because of the balance between benefit and cost of lowering that risk down further if we were to take that portfolio down to a low level of risk. And in regards to if we do want to split that risk out in terms of setting appetites for different parts of it, we would need to change our risk policy.
Clear.
Yeah, thanks, George. Yeah, the reason I felt strongly about that is because it's grouped with governance and reputation. And so that's why, on balance, it becomes a moderate risk appetite. But I do feel strongly that we've got a really low appetite for risk when it comes to complying with legislative requirements and internal controls and things like that, like I feel by grouping them together, it's giving the wrong message to people who read this risk appetite statement, that we're actually okay about taking a reasonable amount of risk in those areas as well. Yeah. So yes, I appreciate it's a change. And I remember when we first did the risk appetite statements, there were discussions about that as well, and why we want to keep the, I suppose, the individual risks that are reported about as low as possible. But yeah, I'm just feeling that it's, yeah, I'm not comfortable with having a moderate risk appetite for things like compliance and control. That's all.
So just in response to that, I mean, I think it's probably something that can't be resolved right now, and I'm happy to take that back to the next ARC meeting in December for a discussion around that risk portfolio and whether there is appetite, for want of a better word, to make it more granular across those areas and look at the risk appetite settings if council would like me to do that.
Thank you, George. I think that's the best way forward. I think that's, yeah, I mean, I'd still absolutely appreciate all your comments, Claire, and let's bring this back to the ARC committee when they next meet to consider those suggestions. Thank you. All right, are there any other comments from you, George?
No, that was the list of amendments.
Okay. Right, so we have a number of, oh, here we go, Ken.
Yeah. So the team has obviously during the discussion, in fact, slightly prior to the discussion, put an amended recommendation up there. Although I am a little bit concerned in terms of what council wants to do with the bottom one, number C. Sorry, that's not so good. Number C, because we're asking you to endorse the risk appetite statement, but of course we've just said actually we want it to go back to Audit and Risk Committee in December. So so I wonder if that needs to be endorses the risk appetite statement subject to the Audit and Risk Committee, further considering, the particular one. Yeah, the particular one that was of concern. So we might just need to tweak to that just before we put the resolution.
Okay, is everyone happy with the changes that are up on the screen? Roger?
Yeah, I think I really feel great that people have looked at this Audit and Risk Committee report. It's tremendous, and thank you for that, Claire. But in terms of all of these suggested changes, I'm just wondering whether the correct procedure are for those changes, all of the changes, to go back to the Audit and Risk Committee for adoption or consideration, rather than the changes being made by us around here. Just the process, that's all I'm concerned about.
Okay, so we've got Ken. Ken would like to reply to that.
Yes, I was listening in. Look, I think it is over to the meeting today, and very, very conscious of your position on the Audit and Risk Committee, Roger. I guess we felt that we were relatively comfortable with the other ones. We worked with the top risk changes. Certainly looking to close the loop with Audit and Risk Committee at its December meeting, and in terms of in terms of council has considered these things and believes that these tweaks or these changes should be made. So as officers, we did discuss this yesterday, and we were fairly comfortable with just a closing of the loop with the Audit and Risk Committee. But I think it is important. I mean, the Audit and Risk Committee obviously are the committee that we've tasked with giving really good due consideration to our risk environment. So play an incredibly important role. But look, at the end of the day, the whole reason why we're bringing these two documents to council for endorsement is because at the end of the day, it is actually council who owns risk, who is responsible for risk in the organisation. The Audit and Risk Committee is a very important assistant with that, but it is council that owns it. So so I, as an officer, and the other officers involved here are comfortable with those changes being made as long as we close the loop.
And look, I'm comfortable with the amendments that I'm seeing up on the screen as well. I think we do need to keep moving, and as Ken said, this is a full council decision. So if everybody is happy with that, but that doesn't obviously preclude you from discussions at ARC at your next meeting around some of these, of course. Yeah, I think it's an ongoing thing, isn't it? So Claire, were you happy to move in that direction with the amendments, of course? And this is on page 21 of our agenda. Do I have a seconder, please, for the resolution? Thank you, Andrew. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to our next agenda item, and thank you, George. Okay, the big one, annual report. So Ken, I'm going to hand straight over to you for this.
Yep, that is fine. Take a moment to come up and actually just checking.
Morning, Yolanda.
My microphone on. Yeah, so so welcome, Yolanda. Just checking, is Renee on the screen as well? Yeah, okay, no, that's good. Thank you. Yep. Good morning, Renee.
So Renee's from Audit New Zealand, is that right?
Yes, yes. So Renee is our audit director, and actually I noticed we've got so we've got Renee, our audit director from Audit New Zealand, and we also have Kay, who is the audit manager from Audit New Zealand as well.
Welcome.
So so welcome team. We have obviously been working very, very closely with these two people over the past few weeks. Okay, but Madam Chair, very pleased to introduce this item, the annual report. So look, there's probably 2 or 3 areas that I just want to cover off by way of introduction. So the first one is, I guess it's appropriate to give an overview with particular reference to our financial situation. So the annual report is obviously a key accountability document. We go back to the public and we indicate how we performed against what we propose to do in the annual plan. So this is a really interesting set of financial statements because they look quite different to what most of our financial statements have looked like over the past few years. I think that is a reflection of a pretty tough year. So our surplus was only just over $1 million. That sounds an awful lot of money. The $1 million. But look, our budgeted surplus was $45 million. Last year we achieved $31 million, and actually, to be honest, our surplus normally sits on that 20 to 30 or even $40 million region, and that is because Waipa we have over the recent past experienced quite considerable growth. So our surplus is always fueled by a lot of that growth-related revenue. So development contributions, reserve contributions, vested assets, the fees and charges that come out of building consent fees and resource consent fees, etc. They always lift us up to being a very strong surplus. So this year, if you look on a line-by-line basis, you can see all of that growth-related income was significantly down. But it wasn't only on that revenue side and the impact on the revenue side, also on the cost side. We've had significant increases, and a lot of that is the general inflationary environment right across the board. So you do see that coming through in the financial statements. Interest costs were significantly up, so a big jump in our interest expense compared to budget and compared to the previous year. And depreciation as well. So in an inflationary environment, our assets are increasing in value, and therefore our depreciation is as well. So look, this is quite a broad ranging set of factors that have resulted in that surplus. I just wanted to acknowledge and indicate to you that surplus is at a level that we haven't seen for a very long time at Waipa in terms of the low level of it. Okay, I think it's also pertinent to observe in relation to that all of those matters that I've just talked about, they are continued pressures in the current year. None of that has changed. Our growth revenue is down in the current year. You know, our costs are up, interest is up, depreciation is up again in the current year, and they will be as well when we basically formulate and you people adopt a long-term plan for 2024-34. These factors will continue to be at play, I believe, for at least the short to medium term future. Yeah, don't want to be a prophet of doom and gloom though, so it's not all bad. Our infrastructure is in good shape here at Waipa. That's a reality, which is a really good thing. And we continue to have plenty of headroom for planned borrowing going forward. And you can certainly see that in those financial prudence graphs that are quite a key part of the annual report. Our balance sheet is strong, $2.5 billion of assets, and our equity is at 2.3 billion. So so look, we've got some really good soundness there that we can build on going forward. Okay, prior period adjustments. So I just wanted to talk about those because they certainly became a very significant theme over the past couple of weeks as the audit drew to its conclusion. So look, those are really the result of processes that have been long-standing and that do involve multiple people and documentation as we recognise these vested assets that are coming into our ownership, and as we basically capitalise work in progress for assets that we're building ourselves. So look, it's been long-standing in terms of those processes that have been in place. Some of those processes do have a bit of complexity around them in terms of as-built plans, in terms of development engineering sign-offs that the assets are up to code, etc., etc. They do go through multiple people and lots of documents need to be signed. So look, in terms of these issues, because they really did elongate the audit clearance process, they were identified quite early in the audit, those cut-off issues were a concern. But look, it was only in the lead up to audit finalisation that it looked like they were material and that they really presented as an issue. They did cause certainly quite a bit of stress for the Waipa team. I know they also created quite a bit of stress for the audit team as well. And so so thanks to both those teams for steering the course. And we are certainly happy now that we're in a place today where we have got an audit clearance. There are learnings in regard to what went wrong there in terms of those prior period adjustments. And so, so we will look very comprehensively at those internal processes for asset recognition, and also perhaps just a word of warning to audit. We're also very conscious that when these issues come up, it's not great when they're sort of 5 minutes before a statutory deadline as well. So look, traditionally we have always had our audit sign off in September, and you guys have been programmed to do the audit in September. So I will certainly be advocating very strongly with you people that we move back up the timelines in terms of your resourcing, etc., to a sign off ideally in late September or early October, rather than right at the end of October, which of course is our statutory deadline. Okay, hey, governance team. So I'm just wondering if we could just have the recommendation put on the screen, because I do there's just a couple of other things I just want to talk about. The first is the recommendation. I just want to let you know where we're going with that. Okay, so councillors, this was circulated to you last night, so it's in the same form you saw it last night. It has got the track changes from the agenda. But look, the audit clearance timeline, I mentioned the pressure that they had put on us. It certainly created a less than ideal situation for our agenda papers as well. So we did have to put a recommendation in the agenda. But look, since then the world has changed a little bit. So look, I'll just walk you through this. So essentially, we obviously ultimately we need a recommendation that we adopt an annual report, and that we approve for publication a summary annual report. So certainly D&E have still got that ultimate flavour. However, there are a couple of other key pieces of information that you need to that are quite crucial to this recommendation before you today. So one of those is an additional report that was circulated actually over the weekend. So that essentially was gave the blessing of the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee and the deputy chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, Councillor Gordon, to some final technical changes to those prior period adjustment notes and some flow-on effects. So you received a report that was approved by both Bruce and Roger, and actually did give you some revised documents. So those are a key part of today. Then the other thing that has happened is that yesterday morning, we received a whole lot of additional changes from Councillor St Pierre, additional suggestions, recommendations from Councillor St Pierre. Now, a number of those were, we think are absolutely, minor typographical type corrections. So you'll see that we have made provision in this recommendation for a minor correction, or of typographical errors. So that is coming through in the recommendation. However, there are a bunch of, just a few other ones that we think are more substantive in nature. They certainly couldn't just be called typographical. So we're just looking to put that up on the screen now. And that is what is happening here in terms of this annual report further minor changes table, because really we do need you to understand those matters and before they can be incorporated into the final annual report. So Joe, perhaps if we can just have that table up now, and I'll hand over to Yolanda just to lead you through those suggested changes.
Thank you, Chair. So on the first two changes were requested by the Audit New Zealand technical team just after their final review. The first is a wording change to, we had a prior period error, and it was corrected to prior period errors. And then also referring to the assets that were completed, they rather than it. Then Councillor St Pierre's changes on page 64, we updated the balances to align with the figures that we had after the prior period adjustments. Page 113, we removed reference to senior counsel because that is on hold. On page 139, we included the words, management program. So the sentence read, WIPA is continuing to deliver the smart water demand management programs added now. On page 140, we had a duplication in the potable water information. So we just removed the duplication. So we left the first bullet point, removed the second one. Then on page 175, we updated the representation of the Pirongia Ward Committee. And page 179, the sentence read, have also been appointed, but at the end of June 2023, those representatives had not been appointed. So we changed the wording to been provided for on. So making provision for those representatives to be elected. On page 184, we amended the policy and bylaws with the bylaws that were adopted in 22-23. And then in the glossary of terms, we had future proof. We added Matamata Piako District Council because they are part of the future proof project. And for the ward definition, we updated the definition to reflect the updated council wards. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, and then just on the summary annual report, thank you, Joe. It is a repetition of the Audit New Zealand adjustments to the prior period error note.
All right, thank you for that. Ken, last comments?
Yes, and no more from me, Madam Chair. Yeah, just drawing to your attention that Renee is certainly available for any questions that anyone has on either the audit process or the or the documentation. Renee did come to last Thursday's Audit and Risk Committee meeting and engaged quite substantially with the Audit and Risk Committee in regard to the audit and the annual report. But yeah, should certainly be happy to answer any questions today.
All right, any questions for Renee? Marcus, do you have a question for the Audit New Zealand?
I just have a couple of small corrections as well that haven't been picked up. So do you want me to email them to you, or should we...
Are they just typographical
Oh, well,
errors?
no, there's a couple of content was wrong. On page 98, isn't there more than 4 kakapo now?
Okay, we shall check.
I don't know. They, maybe
Yeah.
not at the 30th of June.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
And page 99, under the ethnicity column, the bottom row, it's got a formatting issue. It says 0.02% 4 to 6 groups, but I think that should be expanded to say not elsewhere included. And page 147, in the second table where it's got Waikato Regional Transport Model and it's got a star sign, then a dash called, it feels like there's something missing there or things. And the last one, which is quite a major, page 266, my surname is spelled wrong. Thank you, Claire.
I did.
You picked that up. Yeah, I didn't notice that
But
one.
they'll have got it.
That's all from me.
Okay, it feels like we've amended the recommendation to accommodate these changes. So are there any other queries around the annual report, Claire, or questions for Audit New Zealand?
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this and for picking up those things I sent through. I did have a query about a couple of things. The first one about the numbers is on page 143 of the report, which is the capital expenditure table for support services. So in the internal borrowing statement, it says that $40 million was raised this year. But in the tables above, it doesn't actually say that $40 million was spent. It just seems to be a mismatch to me. Like, have you looked into that one?
We did look into it, and the 40 million is correct. So it is it's capital spend throughout the organisation,
Oh, throughout the organisation, right.
and
yeah.
then also the interest that's added onto the DC loans.
So if that's the case, I just wonder whether or not the heading for that could somehow indicate that it's across council rather than just that particular group. I don't know. Yeah, because I was thinking, what does support services need $40 million for?
Yeah, I can. Well, they may need it, but I guess that's not the accuracy of it. So yeah, look, I'll let staff to take that into consideration.
And then the other point I wanted to make is at the beginning where we had the snapshot, that, you know, it mentions that Mayor Susan O'Regan won the mayoralty. And I think it should also say that she is the first female mayor for Waipa District. I think that's really significant. It might be because I'm a woman, I don't know, but I just think that it needs emphasising, that's all. Yeah,
Are there
and
any
also
other- okay,
that we had the first Māori ward councillor elected as well, and that's not mentioned either.
Okay, thanks, Claire. I think any contrary views to that? Otherwise, I think that is a excellent suggestion, but I could be biased as well. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Right, we'll let staff to make those changes. Anything else, Claire? Otherwise, I'll move to Roger. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'd just like to endorse Ken's comments. You know, I think I would really have expected the annual plan to be presented to council as quite a clean document. And I think the delays that we've had have frustrated that process. I just want to register that I think it's disappointing that we're actually really picking up very, very minor edits in that document when they should have been picked up considerably before now.
Thank you. Roger, Monty?
Look, we discussed in audit and risk the presentation, the timing of the presentation of the annual report to audit and risk, which was only last week, and then to council this week. And we were of the view that it would be better if, at very least, audit and risk was involved earlier in the process. So we got to see an earlier draft. So a lot of this stuff could be picked up, and then potentially council as well, because in both instances, audit and risk gets it kind of at the last minute, and then council's getting it at the very last minute. This has to be approved today. So just a question to management. I think I'm right in detecting that there was an appetite to sort of get councillors involved in an earlier draft. The chair of audit and risk thought that we should be getting it actually prior to the auditors getting it. So that's sort of how the timing should be working, just in draft format, but allowing us to make these contributions, to provide a little bit of value, improve the accuracy and the sort of, you know, the inherent worth of the annual report. So
Thank you,
that's
Monty.
a bit of a question to management, just
Yes,
are
we'll
they
let
happy
Gary
with that?
respond. Yep.
Yeah, so we're up against the statutory deadline where we need this thing adopted today. But to Ken's earlier point, that's why we'll be advocating with Audit New Zealand to bring the audit back to the September date, so that if there are issues, we've still got the all of October to deal with them. But absolutely take your point. If the timing of the audit had worked better, then in a perfect world, we would have had it to the Audit and Risk Committee a lot sooner than we did.
So I think Monty's question is it possible for us to see a draft before it went to Audit New Zealand?
That was Bruce's,
Yeah.
Bruce, chair of audit and risk, thought that he said we should actually be getting it before audit, in draft form, admittedly.
Is that a possibility, Ken?
Yes, it is. So yes, so we'll look. I took that as being agreed at Audit and Risk on Thursday. Actually, in terms of you know, before it goes to audit, yeah, I'm just not sure that we can actually achieve that, because often we are, you know, sort of working right up to that date. But it would either be before or at the same time that it goes to audit. So just with that slight qualifier, yes, we can certainly build that into the process.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Mike, Peter?
Thank you through the chair. It might be a question for Renee or Kay. This page 141, just around council employee remuneration by band. They're in sort of steps of around 20 odd thousand until you get up to a CEO, of course. But then there's 8 there. There's 8 employees, and sort of the band is more like 160,000. Is that for sort of privacy reasons, or is there a reason why it's so out of kilter with the other bands?
I'm not sure. That may be a Ken question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just
Oh, it was page 141. It was council employee remuneration. It's just all the bands were around roughly 20 odd thousand.
Sorry, it's actually 141.
Oh,
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, look, it is. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. I'm just looking at the banding. So yeah, so we were generally into the they're $20,000, aren't they? Generally up to that point, and then we do suddenly expand greatly. Yeah, look, I would suggest it really is for privacy privacy reasons, councillor, because of course you're dealing with a lot lesser employees, you know, a lot lesser number of employees. So yeah, so therefore quite a big a big banding.
Happy with that. Just wanted to clarify that for anyone looking on. Thank you.
do you want to come up to a microphone? Come up to a microphone. Yeah, just for those who are online. Yeah, thanks.
There is a certain number of employees that are needed in a band before it moves. So that could possibly, yeah.
Right. Thanks for that. Okay, everybody. There's been another couple of tweaks, I think, to the recommendation. Are there any other questions of Audit New Zealand or of our team councillors before we move to the recommendation again? Okay, so the recommendation is back on your screen. Give you a moment to look through that. Does anyone want me to read it out? Good. But it's been circulated, but there was just another tweak now. So what was the tweak? Perhaps Joe, we might just get you just to Oh, it's been highlighted. Excellent. Right. The tweak has been highlighted. So we can see the amendment to what was previously sent. Okay. All right. So look, we have a mover. Marcus is happy to move. Claire's happy to second. All in favour? Against? Carried. Ken, you'll be a happy man. Right. Thank you, Audit New Zealand, for coming online. Yeah, really appreciate you being here this morning. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we'll just take a second and we will move on to our next item, which is our art collection. This is on page 322 of our agenda. Good morning, Anne. How are you? Okay. Right, I'll just hand straight to you, I think. Thank you.
Well, kia ora tātou. I'm Anne, the Director of Museums and Heritage. And
kia ora everyone. My name is Sarah and I'm the Collection Manager at Te Amutu Museum. So part of my job is to look after and manage the council art collection. So I've done a lot of work on this project.
so in accordance with Council's Art Collection Management Plan, approval was gained from the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee on the 3rd of October for the removal of 34 works from the Council Art Collection. So now the subsequent disposal of these assets requires the approval of Council, as the power to dispose of assets cannot be delegated by Council under the Local Government Act. So we're just seeking support today for the approval of the disposal of those 34 works. So happy to take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, any questions? Marcus and then Dale Marie.
How much storage does this give you back? Like, is this good? Like, does it make a difference to you put more things?
Yep, it definitely makes a difference. It's not objects obviously that we have to store, so they do take up space and they do take up time and resources to take care of them. So yeah, it frees up both space and resources.
Any other questions? Otherwise, Dale Marie is going to move the item and Andrew's going to second the item. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, everybody. Thank you both. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a break now, everybody. We're just going to firstly just move into a resolution to exclude the public. So when we come back, so thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Bruce. All in favour?